there, me again. I'm going to try to get this started today before the heat kicks in. Good gosh. Because I want to get this started before I have to turn on any air conditioning. Because I don't think the noise reduction in my audio editing software can actually take all of that out. That's pretty loud. But as I mentioned in the premiere clip for this video, there were a lot of people who saw that calling BS video that I uploaded to YouTube about 3 weeks ago, and I mentioned that I was making chocolate mint gin in a post that I made in that group, and the owner, who was 100% against all forms of redistillation, was just all gaga over that video or that post, clearly not realizing that gin is the product of redistilling. So it's rather funny, but a lot of people sent me messages on MeWe and comments and such, wanting to know how exactly do you make chocolate mint gin. So that's what I'm going to do today while I'm hiding from the heat. 107 degrees. Who the hell orders this shit? So I'm going to get this started before I have to turn the air conditioning on. As I mentioned in that other video, that premiere, I'm going to use an air still, and this is not the Still Spirits brand air still. This is a Japanese knockoff that has adjustable temperature, because you can only buy them in two different forms. There's either a spirit air still or a water air still. And I've seen a lot of people who made the mistake of buying the water air still because they thought they could just use it for two different purposes. But the problem is it just runs too hot. You get nothing but watered down distillate out of that if you're trying to redistill any kind of alcohol. So this one is adjustable. I started out at 80 C, which is about 176 Fahrenheit. Right about where you want it if you're going to be distilling alcohol. And then I increment it up to 90 C, which is where the Still Spirits brand actually runs. It runs at 90 C. It starts out, rather than starting out low and working your way up, it just runs hot all the time. And when you notice that there's not a whole lot coming out of the still anymore, then it's done. Another thing I'm going to mention here is that if you are interested in making gin or learning how to do it, look up a channel on YouTube from this little Canadian gal. She looks like she's Asian. Her channel is called Miss Brewbird, and she went to numerous different countries on, I don't know how she did it, but she applied as an apprentice at various distilleries, and a lot of them were gin distilleries. And she posted a lot of videos explaining all of the botanicals that are used in various different gins. And there was also a video where there was like a little experiment or a contest amongst the distillers and apprentice distillers at this one distillery. So you got a good idea of everything that goes in gin, but primarily it's the two main things are going to be juniper berries and coriander seed. The rest of it's all variable. But when you're doing this, you don't want to use anything stronger than 80 proof, because when you start heating up alcohol, and it doesn't take much, once it starts getting warm, the vapors that come off of it are flammable. And you don't want that in a still, because, gosh, even though it's electric and should be well sealed. You never know, there could be a spark in the motor, which I don't think that would be in this case, the fan motor, because it's brushless. But either way, you don't want those vapors coming out and coming close to anything like a flame or a spark, because you could make things go boom. So what we have here, this is a quart of 185 proof sugar shine, meaning distilled sugar wash. I don't use table sugar when I make mine. I use corn syrup. Caro brand syrup is a corn syrup. Yes, it's more expensive than table sugar, but it tastes better. I've done it both ways, and just depends on what you're doing with the distillate afterwards. If you can mask that flavor from the table sugar, great. But for some reason it still comes through. I just don't like it, so I use corn syrup. So this is 185 proof. I'm going to put this in the still first. I'm not going to squeeze the jar or wring it out. So that's 1 quart, 185 proof. I want to bring this down to 80 proof. So another quart of water would bring it down to 92.5. So I'm going to use 3 of these half-quart mason jars to knock it down even further. Doesn't matter if you go lower. You'll just end up with more water left behind in the still. So that's a little over a half gallon, and I'm going to guess and say that might have knocked it down to 70 proof, which is perfectly fine. After this, we're going to add the other ingredients. Juniper berries, coriander seed, cooking cocoa. This is not hot cocoa like you would make in a cup. This is that. There's no sugar in this. It's raw cocoa. Vanilla extract. Doesn't have to be anything expensive. This is the dollar store stuff. 8-ounce bottle you get for $1. And then we're going to add fresh mint out of the greenhouse. It's spearmint and fennel root, and probably some of the greens, and that provides a licorice type flavor. There are other things you could use. You could use actual licorice root if you wanted. I can't grow that for some reason. Another one is a green herb called chervil, Chervil. It looks like very small parsley plants, but it's a super sweet black licorice flavored herb. You mix all that together and you let it sit in here warming for a little while before you actually crank up the heat and start it distilling. If you were to do it the regular way with what this air still wants you to do, this little thing that's on the front of it, they, in the manual, they say this is your gin basket. You're supposed to put your botanicals in here. Well, that's nowhere near enough. Since this will actually hold 1.25 gallons, something like that, that little amount of botanicals is nowhere near enough to actually infuse flavor into it. So I'm going to put the herbs directly in here and let them steep for a while. Low temp, about 50 C, maybe a little less. Let it do that for an hour. Then I'm going to bring it up to 80 C and start collecting in here. I'm not going to do cuts because I've done this a number of times. I can't taste any difference in any cuts. This thing will max out by the time it's done, because I'm going to go in 2-degree C increments, so 80, 82, 84, 86, up to 90. And once I hit 90 and this stops putting out anything, I'm going to call it done. And this, what ends up in here, will be about between 130 and 140 proof. And there will be enough that you can knock it down and end up with 2 quarts of chocolate mint gin. So I'm going to cut this off for a second here. I'm going to go out to the greenhouse and get the fennel and the spearmint, and I will be back. Okay, I'm back. Just went and yanked this out of my aquaponics system in the greenhouse. In case you aren't familiar with fennel, this is what it looks like. Looks a lot like dill in a sense, especially when the top starts flowering out in order to make seeds. But it tastes just like black licorice. It's used in a lot of recipes, whether it's tea or I've seen people actually put this on steaks on the grill, you know, the leafy part. But all we need is the root part of it. So I'm taking that off. Just that part. I don't know, am I going to need a cleaver for this? Sometimes you do. Just got to get a little more angle on it. And you don't have to chop it up really fine. I'm just making like little 1/4 inch thick slices. And what we will end up here with is, yikes, probably about a 1/4 cup of fennel, if I don't throw it all over the floor. So we're going to take the lid off of that. And just drop them in there. Take that out of the way. Looks like I dropped about 3 or 4. And then we have spearmint, also grown in the greenhouse, in the wicking beds rather than the aquaponics system. Now we're not going to use all of this, probably going to use about half of it. I'll tell you another really good use for this stuff. If you have a quart of white lightning, white dog, whatever you want to call it, dump about a 1/4 cup of white sugar in it and a few of these stalks, these sprigs like that, and let it sit for, well, after you shake it up, let it sit for about 3 or 4 days. This will actually turn everything in that jar a weird green. Not really weird, I shouldn't say that, but not as dark as the leaves, but it's clear, just has a really deep green haze to it. Spearmint schnapps, it is really good. And the thing is, you can make it as strong as you want. Most schnapps is only about, gosh, 40 proof, something like that. So if you want to make yourself some really powerful spearmint schnapps, this is the best way to do it. So with these, I'm just going to, like I said, use half. Yeah, there's a lot of sap and oil in those because the leaves are sticky. I'm going to use about half of this. I'm just going to use a pair of scissors and make cuts about every 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch or so. There. One more and we're done. Get out there. I'll use that later. Might actually make schnapps with the remainder of that. Good idea. Good thing I thought of it. Never mind. All right. So you've seen that part. We have our cocoa measured out, and it's about an 1/8 cup or 1 ounce. About everything else you're going to do here, as far as the cocoa, vanilla, juniper berries, and coriander seed are going to be 1 ounce or 1/8 cup measurements. So there's that. Dump that in. And I forgot I had an open bottle of this cheap imitation vanilla extract. There's my 1 ounce line right there. I should have enough in here to do that. Oh yeah, more than that. We've still got another ounce left. So there's an ounce of your imitation vanilla extract. I would say if you're using real vanilla extract, you probably only need to use about half of that. This cheap imitation stuff, the flavor is really diluted. Diluted or diluted, like that other mess of people. Oh, I didn't say that out loud, did I? I'm going to get the juniper berries and the coriander seed, and those you have to use pestle and mortar, or if you have a coffee grinder or anything, you got to bust them up because you want the distillate to get in there and help release their oils, and that's the key here. A lot of this stuff is all what you're flavoring it with is actually an oil in the plant or a sap. So let me get those. I'll pause the video here and I will be right back. Okay, I'm back, and just my luck, air conditioner turned on. That's only about 15 feet away, so I'm going to have to hope that my noise reduction in my software can remove that. I'll try to talk louder so my voice doesn't get buried behind the noise of the air conditioner. I have the juniper berries. Can I get that in the camera's view? Yeah, I can. They're broken up or just broken open. You don't really have to mash them all to pieces. Just got to get them broken open so that the distillate can get into it. I'm going to dump those in there. Then here we have about an 1/8 cup of coriander seed. And we'll do the same thing. Oops. Kind of stuck in there. This doesn't take very long because these break real easy. They're a hard seed, unlike the juniper berries that are soft and kind of rubbery, and it's because the pulp in them is just full of, I hate this word, essential oil. The coriander seed gives the gin kind of a citrus-like flavor. I don't know if you've ever cooked anything with coriander seed, but if you were to just take a couple out of the package and chew on them, it would actually taste like you're chewing on a, I don't know, an orange or a grapefruit peel. Which leads me to wonder why some of those gins, you actually see them putting orange zest, grapefruit zest, things like that in it. Alright, so that's all those needed. Put those in. And that's it for all of our botanicals. Sorry, that's it for all of our botanicals. So I'm going to put the lid on here. And these just press on. There's a silicone seal around the outer edge. It's set to 80 C right now. I'm going to take it down to 50. So it'll be enough. Yikes. It'll be enough to get it warming up and things steeping. And I want to leave it like that for an hour, at least an hour. And that will help, get the oils out of those botanicals into the distillate. And then I'll actually run it in the distilling mode. Something to keep in mind whenever you're making gin, it will generally turn cloudy the moment you try to dilute it with distilled water. And this is completely normal because there's oils in it. So when you knock your gin down to whatever you like, I like 80 proof, it will turn cloudy, but you just got to let it sit for a day or two. And then that cloudiness completely clears up. It's just a thing. There's oil in there, and that oil has to kind of get saturated back into the solution. So that's about it for this segment. I'll come back when I start running the distillation portion of it. and I'll catch you in a few minutes, or actually a few seconds for you guys. Okay, we have even more noise now. Goodness. Alright, so the air still itself is running and making noise. One air conditioner in the living room making noise, and another air conditioner about 20 feet behind me in the laundry area, it's running. So we have some interference here. I just started the distillation run on this, and it's been putting out for maybe 20 minutes or so. You can't see very much happening. You notice that temperature on the air still, it drops and goes up and then drops and goes up. In the distillation world, this is a bad thing. No professional distiller wants that. They want the temperature constant. But air stills don't work like that. They heat up, and when they hit their temperature, it turns off the power to the heating element. And when that happens, there it goes. See, it went up to 81, and it's putting out. Now you'll see that cut off because the temperature has been shut off to the heating element. It's slowly cooling down, and yep, the drops or drips, whatever, they're slowing down. There goes the temperature back downward again. So we let it run like this at 80°C until that really slows down. Then we bump it up to 82. Each one of those increments probably takes about, I don't know, 30, 45 minutes, something like that. And then once it gets up to 90 and it stops putting out, that's when I call it done. I don't even try to get any more out of it after that. But that's where we are right now. And it looks, according to what I can see in the bottom of that picture, there's probably a quarter cup, maybe a little more than that in the bottom. But we'll just let it go, and I'll be back with another clip when I'm nearing the end of this. Be right back. Okay, we're into the home stretch. Got about an hour left. We're 4 hours into this. I just bumped it up to 90. And, well, unlike what Captain Corndog would like you to believe, I didn't blow up anything. Obviously, this isn't as dangerous as he seems to think it is. But we have nearly, let's see if I can get the camera over here to look at that. Nearly 1,200 milliliters. And after this is done, I'll give it the old hydrometer test and see what the proof is. I'm sure it'll be somewhere between 130 and 140. So for what's in there, knocking it down to 80 proof will likely give me about 2 quarts. So all I gotta do is go get me some Schweppes tonic water. And I'm gonna have me a gin and tonic tonight, cloudy or not. So we'll be back after this finally finishes running. Like I said, about 1 more hour is all I'm gonna give it. So be right back. Okay, end of the run. I shut off the still. It's still sitting there at 90°C. Ended up, well, with what's in the flask there and in the pitcher, ended up with 1350 milliliters. And according to the hydrometer, this camera has a fixed focal length of 24 inches, so it can't focus on anything that small. But got 145 proof, so it was actually better than what I figured it would come out to be. But that's after what? Yeah, 5 hours. This is just hobby equipment. I'm just a hobbyist, small-time hobbyist playing with this kind of stuff. I don't own the big fancy stills like the major hobbyists have because, well, hell, I couldn't drink it all fast enough. You can't legally sell it. I don't want to get in trouble for that. And I don't want to stockpile a bunch of that in my house, so that's why I don't have a big still. I only use little ones like this. But there you have it. That's how you make chocolate mint gin, and there's the full distillation. It said 1 quart of 185 proof going in, and ended up in the end 1350 milliliters, which is slightly less than 2 quarts, coming out slightly less. Yep. But that's the end of this video. Have a good one. Take it easy. See you next time.